Hello, Film Reverie listeners. This is Michael Beckemeyer.
Oh, and I'm Brad. And I just realized maybe you might want to scoot over a hair.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay.
We can't get our shit together right now.
No. Okay.
Yeah, and it's all your fault.
It is. I got to bring up our lower thirds because.
Do it. Now you brought up the wrong one. I am not Clive.
I ruined it already.
Now, our guest, who is obviously Clive Frayne, who we just saw the lower third of, is going to think, ever since you entered the room, things have been wrong. It was fine. We're having a nice little chat, 5 minutes, and you walked in and everything went to shit.
I mean, we couldn't have recorded anything at that point.
Right. Today we have our guest is Clive Frayne. He's a screenwriter and would you call yourself a screenwriting coach?
He's not on yet, sir.
He's not. We'll bring him in.
You
can hear me, right?
I
can hear you. Yeah,
you can hear me, right? He's a. Yeah. Would you call yourself a screenwriting coach, a screenwriter?
No. I mean, I'm a development consultant, which I know sounds like really poncy, but I mean it's actually there's a kind of difference in the sense that, like, primarily I work with producers as opposed to working directly with writers, although that's something that's kind of changing.
Okay.
So my big thing is kind of like helping producers kind of develop scripts for independent film.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I do professionally, and I mean I kind of fell into that by accident, basically. When I was kind of trying to make films and sort of develop my screenwriting career, people who I used to work with would phone me up and say, "Oh, I'm working on this project. It's an absolute nightmare. Can you come in and help us fix it?" And so I just kind of staggered into this kind of weird profession whereby I would turn up and say, "Well, the problem with this is that the script is dreadful."
That's the way I talk. No sugar.
I only say that about screenplays of other people behind closed door, but I'm always saying that about my stuff. This shit. Yeah.
It's kind of like, so I would come in to the producer and say, "Look, well, your big problem is that the script's nowhere near ready. There's this problem, this problem." And then we would try and fix it. And then, so like on some of those jobs, like I would help the writer kind of get it to the point where it was ready to kind of go out. Mm-hmm. And then, like, as time's gone on, a lot of the time after we've kind of gone 2 or 3 passes with the writer, I step in and just go, "Wouldn't this just be faster if I just wrote this?"
So it's your business model to come in, convince the producer that the writer's not doing it right, so they can pay you to write it.
Well, I mean, like that was. That was how my work kind of started.
Yeah.
These days, like, actually, we're just in the process of launching the new company, and there's about like 5 people involved in it.
Okay.
Like a producer, like a really amazing screenwriter, and another guy who's got like script kind of editing and production background. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the way that development's done. Because that's the thing I really care about more than anything else, is actually the way in which kind of development is handled. So that rather than kind of writers having to go through the process I did, which I think a lot of independent filmmakers go through, is the way that you learn screenwriting and storytelling and independent filmmaking is you turn up with a lot of kind of enthusiasm and great ideas and like full of self-confidence. And over the course of like 7, 8, 9 years, independent filmmaking beats it out of you. And it's like you learn by making mistakes.
Yeah.
And that was very much my kind of process. I started by making bad short films, and then went on and made a bad feature, and then made a slightly better feature, and then like kind of things sort of kind of take off that when you learn as you kind of go. Yeah. And so the idea is for us to be able to shortcut that process for people, so that actually they can learn from the mistakes that I made and other people's have learned through doing this thing.
Okay.
Is the idea. So I mean that's kind of like what we're doing at the moment.
Okay.
But I mean that's so that's the answer to the question is that's the reason I call myself a development consultant, because I really hate the term script consultant
or script doctor or something.
Yeah, all of those kind of things is. Yeah. I've always had a kind of queasiness around because like notes in the industry, paid for notes, have got such a bad reputation. because there are so many people out there who do it so badly and whose business model just doesn't work. And a group of us sat down and said, look, this could be done better, and that's what we're trying to do. So we launch next month on that. But we've been doing it for about a year though, like unofficially.
So let's say we're producers. We have a script that maybe we wrote, or we have another writer who wrote, and we want to make it into a movie. We want to make this film, and we're like, but the script has problems. So we come to you, and you do what? You like say, well, on page 23, don't do that, or
no, absolutely
explain
not.
your process.
Right. Okay, so process is my big thing.
Yeah.
So
right, your book is called The Process of Screenwriting.
Yeah. Well, you mean this one here? Yeah,
that one there. Yeah. We want to talk about that too.
Yeah. But so no, I mean, like for me, like this is another one of the things that I'm really keen on sort of changing is there's two kind of notes that generally people get, and I don't think either of them are particularly useful. One of which is the idea of constantly trying to fix the script by changing the structure. So it's kind of like, and you get this a lot with independent producers, because obviously you can go out and you can buy Save the Cat, or you can buy, Sid Field's 3-act structure, or you can read about Hero's Journey, or you can watch, the videos on such and such. And do you know what I mean? There's like loads of information out there on structure.
Right.
And so you get like some producers who just constantly hammer back notes on changing the structure. But actually, most of the problems with scripts are not structural problems. They're actually like they're on kind of layers below that. So I would say, I mean, in my consultancy stuff, the most common conversation I have with producers is this: a producer will ring me up and he'll say, "Look, we've got this script, and we really like the story, but the characters aren't working."
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's always that sentence. And generally, the reason that's happening is because what they've done is they've created a plot, and then they're dragging these poor characters through these plot points.
Yeah.
So it's like just like the characters don't feel authentic because all they're doing is showing up to do the thing that the plot says that they should be doing. There's no natural. Yeah, exactly. So you end up with this kind of like these horrible kind of like mechanical kind of scripts.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, okay, well, look, if we're going to fix that, we can't just kind of keep pushing at the plot. What we need to do is we need to go back and we need to do character work. We need to look at how the fictional world works. What actually is the idea? What's this film about? There's all these different kind of layers below before you get to actual plotting.
Why do you think so many screenwriters, some writers in general, struggle with that? Because I have read, I've read a bunch of screenplays. I've written a bunch of screenplays, and I'm certain they're not all, stellar examples. But when I read stuff, why do you think so many people struggle with characters and dialogue not being authentic, or real, like human?
I think
beings?
It's genuinely because they start from the plot and then try to create the characters on top of that instead of doing it the other way around. So I can the example that I use when I'm kind of because I deliver training for the National Film and Television School in London. I teach kind of screenwriting in short courses, and one of the examples I use is okay. Imagine that your inciting incident, the thing that starts the story, is that there's a suitcase with something valuable in it, and that suitcase is stolen. Okay, so that's an inciting incident that would work in lots and lots of stories.
Yeah.
So if the protagonist is Iron Man, then the way that plot progresses will be driven by who he is, how he solves problems, what his weaknesses are, and the fictional world that he exists in. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So if you have exactly the same inciting incident, but your protagonist is SpongeBob SquarePants, the film will be completely different. And the reason it will be completely... or whoever. I mean, any other character. And the reason that the story and the plot will have to be different is because it's a different fictional world with different rules, and the central character is driven by different things and has different strengths and different weaknesses.
Yeah.
And all of those things drive the plot, not the other way around. And I think what happens is people do stuff in reverse order.
Yeah.
So they don't create the characters and then see how the characters will react to each plot point and have it character driven, right? What they do is they try and plot drive and then create characters who fit into whatever's happening. Does that make sense?
I think it's because they have the idea and they fall in love with the idea, and then they have other cooler ideas attached to that idea, and then the characters are like, oh, we just need some people to do these cool ideas, and you know, and then they get other people to fall in love with it and give them money, and then next thing you know, characters don't matter.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've been writing and I'm trying to, was it the square peg in a round hole thing? And you hear it all the time in writing, like, let the characters tell you what needs to happen next.
Yeah.
So many times I've been sitting there writing and a character has totally fucked up what I was trying to do. Because I'm like, it hits you like a lightning bolt. You just have to be paying attention, I guess. But so many things you see and hear, and they don't have any human logic to them.
Exactly. So that's the other thing, is that so what you end up then is the other trap that people fall into is they think that kind of like banter will get them through any scene. So as long as the character
jargon or something.
It's more like kind of like the witty line or the clever line, or
the guy points out the thing that doesn't make sense and like, oh yeah, I noticed that too. Let's go.
By the way, you and Brad need to be best friends. What bothers you, it bothers me too. But Brad, I listen every day. How's it going, Brad? But I'm just thinking about that scene in that movie we saw 20 years ago that still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like my wife will not watch a film with me. The number of times I've sat in there and just kind of like, I actually physically face palm when I'm watching kind of films and TV. Like,
yes.
When we're done here,
I will send you a picture of the last time I saw a movie with Brad. He literally covered his face and put his headphones on. He took a nap.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
So it's kind of like, So, these are all the things that I kind of care about, like most of the. And I think a lot of it. You're saying, like, well, why? You asked an interesting question, which is kind of like, why does this happen? And I think part of it is because the kind of part of the industry that like sells books and courses and all of those things and has been pushing structure for like decades now. The only reason I ended up writing my book is because I realized that all of the stuff that I care about you can't find in books.
Yeah, those books can't. Those books, they have a hard time teaching how to write a good character. You know, and it's hard to say. It is like a lot of times a good character is the one you know it when you see it or when you feel it. So they do struggle to, like, they can beat the hell out of on page 25 as a paradigm shift. Between 25 and 30 is a paradigm shift. Like you can sell books doing that all the time, but that doesn't mean you've taught them to be a good screenwriter.
No, and I think, the first thing I say to most people that I work with is that screenwriting is by far the most technically demanding form of writing that anyone can undertake. I was working as a professional writer for 10 years before I ever started screenwriting. And I was successful and made good money, and I ran writing. So I wrote radio commercials. I know.
Reggae commercials. There was a niche called reggae commercials.
Radio.
Oh, radio. I thought you said reggae. I was like, I didn't even know that was a niche.
Do you know, actually, I would much rather have written reggae commercials. Just all commercials, but only in the form of reggae. For me, that actually is a dream gig. But no, unfortunately, I was like selling carpets and beer and all of those other kind of sort of things that people wanted to sell. And I ran writing teams and made money and won awards and did all of those kind of things. And it's like, so I really, when I came into independent film, when I came into screenwriting, I really thought, this was a thing that would hold no kind of barriers for me because like I wrote for actors and I was directing actors every single day of my professional life. So you'd write things, go into the voice booth with them, direct them. So I thought, well, I can write dialogue, I can write for actors, I know I can write stuff, I know I can get actors to give the performances that I wanted. So I assumed that plus my kind of experience of consuming movies would, like, I'd just like waltz into this kind of industry that would embrace me with open arms and say, we have been waiting for you.
Right.
And actually what happened, it just beat me senseless for about a decade. Whilst I kind of like learned the very hard lesson that actually screenwriting is immensely difficult and technical, and you need to know lots and lots and lots of things. But it's like the most amazing challenge a writer can take on. And as somebody who loves language and loves writing and loves storytelling, and I like to work out why things work or why things don't work. So whenever I would have kind of a failure in the early days, I would literally sit back and pick everything apart and go, okay, where did I make a mistake in all of this? I wasn't really kind of blaming, well, I have blamed other people. I'll give you a list once we've finished broadcasting of all the people that I blame.
I just blame Brad.
But fundamentally, I would kind of look back and kind of take kind of inventory on where I went wrong. And then I would kind of go out and educate myself in the areas where I kind of demonstrated kind of weak. I mean, I don't know if this is a kind of useful story. Well, I think one of my favorite stories to tell, because it's such a humiliating story for me to tell, as I was working with this producer and we were developing this script. And we decided what we do is we get some actors in, we do a table reading. And we got them in and we handed out the script. And by about 4 lines in, I realized how bad the script was. Because I was just kind of so I was face planting my own script. And they were around this long table and I was at the end of it. And I was just sliding down lower. And it was like I was trying to disappear under the table.
Why is it that hearing it out loud, it becomes obvious instantaneously? But writing it, you're reading it, this is fucking good. And then you hear people say it out loud. You're like, no, stop.
I mean, it's like you've got to read your own dialogue out loud. Or I use Final Draft, and I get the computer to read it back to me because it's just the easiest way to check the syntax and stuff.
Brad does the same thing. I'm telling you guys.
I've been reading scripts lately that way.
It's the best way.
Speech.
I love text
so
to
4
speech.
lines in, it was
and then it's so I had to sit through because obviously they didn't get through it in an hour and a half, and we had some breaks. I had to sit there for 2.5 hours, just dying inside.
Grinning
and
and
the producer I was working with was sitting at the other end of the table, and he was having the same experience, but he also found it was hilarious because I'd written the script. So it was just this horrible sort of 2.5 hour long humiliation.
Oh my god!
And I learned so much from that. I learned some humility about my own work. But the other thing I learned is at the end of it, I learned something about getting notes from actors when actors. Literally every actor at the end of it came up to me and told me what a great script it was and how they'd really like to work on it when we made it. And I just thought, that, there was just such an interesting lesson there about kind of all right, so I don't know what to do with that information, but I've kind of hung on to it as a kind of a
I think they just want work. I think they just want work
exactly
because
that.
They just want to.
It is exactly
I'll take the job.
I probably would have been better, although I probably would have given up writing had I heard. It would have been really interesting to hear the conversation they had about me an hour later. Because it couldn't have been any worse than the one I had with that particular producer.
Brad and I were just talking about that. I wonder what people are saying about us when we're not in the room.
We don't. In this industry, you don't want to know. Because I know what I'm saying about other people.
I think what they're saying is, well, Mike is a nice guy, but Brad.
I'm already at a disadvantage. It is, you know that story about how all groups of friends have the homely looking one so that the rest of them seem more appealing. It's Brad.
Oh, Brad. I think he's being entirely unfair. I mean,
I'm just giving Brad. I'm just
yeah.
I have a problem with humans.
Yeah, when I walk in the room next to Brad, they're like, well, Beckemeyer seems normal. Yeah.
I mean, my thing has always been I've never met a dog I didn't like.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's.
I've met a few cats.
Yeah, cats that can go either way.
Including mine a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's fine now, but give him 5 minutes.
Yeah. So, that's the kind of that's where I'm kind of at with that. I mean, as you can see. Oh no, go on. You.
No. So I was just gonna ask you, we could talk. I want to talk about your book a little bit.
Yeah.
When did you write this book? A few years ago, right? A couple years ago?
Actually, it's like just over 2 years now, and it was keep on.
No, and so I wanted you to talk about it a little bit, like your process, like when someone gets your book, what are you gonna go through? You gonna talk about 3-act structure again?
No. Right, so
I didn't think so. Based on what
no, there is a chapter on structure where I kind of go, well, look, this is something that you need to know, but it's not as big a deal as everyone makes it out to be.
Everyone makes it out. If you follow the structure, your screenplay is going to be the next.
And that's just not true. That's I kind of hope people carry on believing that, because actually a lot of my living is based on coming in and fixing that problem. Right. People not knowing that, or at least it was anyway until recently. But basically, because I went through this kind of learning experience for years and years and years and years and years, I eventually realized that there were things that I was doing that other screenwriters weren't doing, at least the ones that I was talking to. And also that the thing I'd kind of figured out ways of doing things, because the other thing to know about me is that I'm essentially a very lazy person. So therefore, like I don't want to kind of do like 14 drafts on something if I can get it done in 3.
Yeah, rewriting is brutal. It's like, and
it's
like staring at yourself in the mirror. It's like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that.
I think it's efficiency. Yeah. Instead of wasting time doing things that is a waste of time, I'd rather figure out in my head how I can attack it from a more efficient angle.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's pretty much the way that I kind of came at it. And I kind of I knew that I was kind of like, I was meeting individual clients and saying, look, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And it was helping them. And I thought, okay. And again, like my mother's had quite a big impact on my professional career over the years. She said you should write a book, and I said, well, I don't want to write a book because I don't have a lot of time for a lot of the screenwriting books that I've read. Right. There were things about screenwriting books which I kind of found problematic. So, I mean, one of them was the push on structure. The second thing was the idea, the ones that kind of sell this idea, if you do this, you will break it big. This is how to make it big in whatever. This is the thing that will launch your career. And I know that that's nonsense. And I always felt that was that was unethical or unprofessional kind of thing. So I kind of hated that. And the other thing I hated was that pretty much every book that I read, people would go, well, if you reverse engineer Jaws, you get this, and that this proves that this is how this works. And what you never got was people going, this is how I do this. And when I do this, this is what it looks like. They never provided examples of their own kind of using the things that they were suggesting. So I kind of set down these basic guidelines. If I was going to write a book, there was a couple of things I was going to do. I was only going to share tools and experiences that I used. Yeah. Secondly, if I said, look, try this technique, I would immediately follow up by showing you what that technique looked like on a first draft. Okay. So, like, if I said, look, use this technique for playing with ideas, I would then generate kind of like 10 ideas based on that, and then the reader could see honestly what that looked like as it's being used, rather than kind of coming from this multi-million-dollar kind of project which I didn't work on. Do you know what I mean? Right. Yeah. And what was the final thing? I can't remember what the final thing was. I wouldn't make any promises other than the fact that this is what I did, and try it. It either works for you or it doesn't. That was the kind of extent of what I did. And so I just did that. I just wrote down everything that I kind of learned and thought about over the years. For me, what I figured out is that development really kind of goes in 7 different stages, and you can attack any one of the 7 stages. So the first one is the raw idea. Second one is theme, which everyone gets wrong and kind of makes far too complicated. Thematic approaching. Like, people talk about it as though it's this kind of like Ponzi esoteric thing for art films, when in fact it's like a really simple thing about what is the emotional heart of the story, what's it really about, what's the human experience that it's exploring. So I kind of, the way that I kind of deal with theme is I basically kind of ask people to go, look, tell me, if you think about it in terms of the emotional and personal cost of whatever the universal human experience is. So it could be the emotional and personal cost of jealousy or the emotional personal cost of ambition. And it's just a way of grounding the character's experience in the plot. And then the next level is a thing called a compass logline. And that's just a simple way of asking people, right, who's your protagonist? Where specifically is this set? Because so many people get that wrong. You get these generic locations rather than specific locations. When is it set, and what's the primary challenge that they're going to have to overcome?
What would you say is an example of a generic location versus a specific?
Like you know, when you pick up a script and the first like slug line is exterior bridge night. And and you kind of and I'm sitting there kind of going, right, okay, so is this a wooden bridge over a creek in Colorado,
right?
Or is it the bridge's size in Venice?
Well, it depends
or
on
is it like the Sydney Harbour Bridge?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that kind of context really matters, you know.
So you're talking about for the reader, painting the picture in the reader's mind as they read through the script. So
it's actually specific. Like it's this thing about like the fictional world, like what is the fictional world that the story inhabits, and that's important both cinematically and also in terms of what the reader understands the significance of it. So I mean,
it is very hard because the more specific you get, the less likely you are to have a brief, like brevity is the soul of wit in a screenplay. They people don't want to see a lot of words because they're lazy readers, and it's not a novel. So I've struggled with that a lot. In fact, being too specific, and my script reads wordy, and it could probably be 10 or 15 pages shorter if I just go in and cut that shit out. So what you're saying is it's a fine line, it's a balance.
It's a really difficult balance as well. So for me, the key for me is like specific relevant detail. So there's some stuff that we don't need, that reader doesn't need to know. Right. But what they need to know is anything that's significant to the story. So I mean, what city the story is set in, that's relevant. Because it makes a difference whether it's set in the backwoods of Colorado or whether it's set in New York or whether it's set in Budapest.
Right.
Those things really matter, not just from a shooting point of view, but also from a point of understanding the culture or actually what you read into the story from those settings, because those things have meaning. So it's about like keeping it concise. It's the same with when characters are introduced. Is like what I'm looking for is a description which tells me what I would work out from the first impression of looking at this character. So I don't want to know that they're kind of muscular or attractive or whatever the hell the standard kind of like intro is. Or specifically, I don't want to know their hair color. What I want to know is if I saw that person in the street, what would I assume by looking at them?
Right.
You know, it's that first piece of information that the audience gets, so that the reader and the actor who's reading the part knows the kind of person that they're portraying. Because the way that we present ourselves, the way that we appear in the world is a way of communicating with the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And with characters, that's specifically true. So for me, it's about those kind of details, about like stuff that kind of tells the reader what the information that they need to kind of make sense of the story. So that's the next level, and then the next level, well, that kind of ties together because the next level is the fictional world, which is the stuff we were just talking about. Whereas it's about what's it look like, what are the cultural values, all of those kind of things. Then character development, and then plotting, and then the actual writing itself. And for me, it's about making sure that everything works at all of those different levels.
Do you suggest going through scene by scene and doing that, or do you want to, when you're in your outline, what does your outline look like? Does your outline go through all those phases per scene?
Right. So the thing is, I use multiple different techniques. So I mean, let's rather than going through the whole thing, right? Let's just say that we start. Let's just say that we start. So the thing that I use for character development is a thing called the spreadsheet method.
Okay.
So basically, I've got a list of things that I think I need to know about characters in order for them to function dramatically. And the most important ones are those are like, what are those characters' strengths? How do they solve problems? What are their weaknesses and vulnerabilities? So in other words, how are they going to kind of like become unraveled by what happens to them? What are they going to find challenging? What do they want? What's their motivation? Yeah. And then finally, what is their backstory? What happened to them in the past that turned them into the person they are now? Mm-hmm. Now, actually, I've got about like 12 different things that I use.
Yeah.
Categories that I use. But let's just say that we were using just those 5 because they're the basics. What I would do is I create a spreadsheet where I've got my protagonist and my antagonist and like all the primary characters. So let's say there's 5 primary characters. And I fill out that information for each of those characters in the spreadsheet. And then underneath that, on the same spreadsheet, I would put on the left-hand column, I'd put out whatever structural approach I was going to use. Mm-hmm. And then I would go through the character arcs of each of those characters. So what does each of those characters do? Not just the protagonist's arc, but what do all of these other characters do? And I would just make sure that everything matches up. And I do that, and then I write a treatment, sort of like a prose form treatment, which will run to about 40, 50 pages.
Oh, shit.
And the reason I do that is because when I'm working with a producer, it means we can fix story problems without working on the script.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I can write a 40-page treatment in about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
So what that means is we can go through 4 or 5 rounds of rewriting the treatment in the time it would take to do one draft.
Yeah.
So then myself and the producer and the director sign off on the treatment and go, this is the way that we're going to tell this story. So when I come to write the actual script, the first draft of the script, I'm literally all I'm doing is figuring out how to make the scenes work cinematically, because I know exactly what the story is. I know who the characters are and how they'll react. And I also know enough about the fictional world to be able to describe it. So I'm not having to make stuff up as I write.
Yeah, and you've technically lived with it and breathed it, and like you've gone through many writing the process of writing it out. You know it by heart. That's sort of inside of you at that point.
Yeah, which is the point of all that work.
Yeah.
So what I'm not doing is I'm not sitting in front of a blank page trying to figure out what to write next.
It is like the process of an actor going through and like memorizing their lines. It's like getting off book.
It's exactly that. And actually the whole start of this journey, because I had about a 4-year period after I left advertising where I was teaching acting for film at a drama college. Okay. And I kind of realized, I had this kind of aha moment where I was reading Stanislavski's An Actor Prepares.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is how actors work.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should be writing in a way that makes sense for them. Maybe I should give them the things that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so it kind of started from that kind of like, okay, if I was an actor, what would I need? If I was a director, what would I need?
Yeah. That's great because you can't have a film without your actors. I mean, you need and to just have the epiphany that maybe I should write this in a way that my actors can understand what's happening and what their motivations are. Instead of a director yelling at him, make a face! You're making the wrong face! More energy! What does that mean?
Exactly. So about 3 years ago, I was in a meeting with a producer who had previously done quite a lot of work as a film actor. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this way of approaching stuff. I was kind of showing how to use it analytically, how to analyze the script using the same tools. And he said, oh, this is incredible because this is kind of the way that I work as an actor. And he said something which like really kind of stuck with me because he's worked on loads and loads of actually quite well-known films. And he said, you would not believe the number of times that I've had to walk into a role on a film and actually figure out and make up what the film was about. Where the cast is like hiding in trailers at the background going, oh, why is this character doing this? What's this? They've had to kind of literally go and make that stuff up away from the rest of the creative process in order to make sense of what they're being asked to do.
Yeah.
And it's way more common than people kind of let on.
When you go to a movie and you can see it, these people are just doing that because it's like the plot thing, and then this happens, and then this happens, and this happens, and they just don't worry about how the human beings involved are going to have to process it or even try to convey it to people. It's infuriating actually to watch.
But the other thing about this is kind of like, there's a really pragmatic reason why I kind of started writing this way, is because if you make independent films, right, you've never got enough money.
Right.
Like, that's always going to be the issue. I mean, particularly like in the UK, that's genuinely problematic, like getting enough money to make the film.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're always going to struggle with that. And what I discovered is that a good script with good roles would attach attach talent you couldn't afford. Because they would come out and do it because you're actually giving them something that was going to be worth kind of like putting the effort in. Yeah. Especially if they were doing a lot of kind of stuff where they were turning up and just, you know, not phoning it in, but where they didn't feel that they were kind of engaged as professionals in it. Yeah. So if you write a great role, it allows you to bring in kind of...
Sorry, excuse me.
No.
Yeah. He's just the current, the current disappointment, Yeah.
But it's like one of those ways of kind of like winning. Yeah, that's
what if Bruce Willis is listening?
It's just between you and me.
Right. So, okay, so that's it's like the it's like it's thorough is what it is. And before you even type fade in on a screenplay, you've done the work, is what actors would call it. You did the work.
Yeah, exactly. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to do the development work rapidly. But it also decreases the number of drafts that you need to do to get to the finish line. Right. And for me, that's what it's all about. And that's actually what producers want as well. I mean, again, as a consultant, the thing I come across quite often, when I get that call, it's because they've been through 14 drafts already. Yeah, 5 writers. And they're not getting anywhere. Yeah. And it's not because the writer's a bad writer. It's like genuinely not the case. And it's not because they're not listening and not taking notes. Yeah. It's just that they're stuck and they can't get to where they need to get to. Sometimes...
Are you like the script whisperer? Are you like the script whisperer? You walk in, you like... to the screenwriter. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say dog whisperer? Like the dog whisperer?
No, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
he's like,
it is kind of,
take them on a walk. Make sure they get their exercise.
I do have that kind of reputation, but particularly with kind of like, I've got a small group of producers who swear by what I do, but it's because I've basically gone in and done that for them again and again. So, for instance, the new company that we're setting up, Script Compass, we inherited a project that they'd worked on for a while before I kind of joined them. And in the last couple of months, we kind of like ran it through a couple of drafts and really kind of honed in on what the issues were and got it sorted out. And that's now a finalist in the Holly Shorts script competition. And I think it's doing well. And it's kind of like it's progressed in another competition as well. And it's got funding for part of its production budget, and it's kind of like this stuff does actually work, you know. I mean, literally all I'm doing is kind of like going, based on my experience, if you do it this way, like it'll be less embarrassing for your career than if you do it this way that I'm suggesting. You know. Yeah, you know, because like
No, I was just thinking about do you ever listen to the Q&A podcast with Jeff Goldsmith?
No, but I love.
So
I might be thinking about someone else actually. I was thinking about Jeff Goldblum,
Jeff Goldblum,
Who that's somebody loves. Completely different. No, I haven't, but I will add it to my list.
Jeff Goldsmith is he's got a publication called Backstory, and his podcast is like he goes around and interviews people who wrote and directed and starred in the movies that are out right now, like the big things that we're all seeing. And he had on many years ago, and he always asked them every now and then he'll ask him what's the worst studio executive note you ever got. And he was talking to the guys who made that film Fanboys, if you remember Fanboys from way back.
Vaguely, yeah.
It was a movie about these guys that decide they're gonna. One of the guys is dying of cancer, and they're gonna. The one last shot. We're gonna go to Skywalker Ranch and get onto the ranch.
I remember.
So.
No, that.
So he put all that. They put all the work into the script, and and Fanboys is a solid movie. It's a solid little indie film. Nice little buddy bonding road trip movie. And one of the studio executives says, "Does he have to have cancer?" and you're like, that sets off the whole fucking movie. What do you want to have? Stub his toe at the beginning?
Really bad dandruff, maybe.
That's the whole point of them going on the trip.
And they just remove it. Can't they just decide to go on the trip? Like, there's no like human gotta do it now thing. There's no why now. There's no why now to that other version of the story.
That's the whole ticking clock thing.
So you go through all this work that you thorough, all this stuff that you're talking about doing, and then somebody says something ludicrous to you like that. What is your response?
Right. So
I'm
in
sure
general,
you've heard it.
Right. Okay. So in general, that doesn't happen, and the reason it doesn't happen is because I tend to work with producers rather than with with actors and or with executives. I've not had to deal with that kind of level of stupid. It's like the first thing that I do with producers, I sit down and go, look, what is the business plan for this film?
Yeah.
Right. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Because I think sometimes where scripts get caught up in development hell is because the producer knows that they've got to do these things over here to raise finance and get distribution.
Right.
And the writer is on this kind of artistic journey and kind of a bit blind to all of this stuff here. Mm-hmm. So I need to know the whole picture about what it is. So, I mean, if the producer's going we really need to knock £500,000 off this budget, or we really need to attach this particular actor into this role in order to get the money that we need to do this, or this has got to be shot in Malta because of the tax breaks. I mean, whatever it is that the producer's going, this is what I desperately need. So I sit down and I listen to that first, because quite often those notes are coming from a kind of a thought process that really should have happened a lot earlier in the development. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not.
Somebody should have sat down with that executive and gone, look, are you seeing this as some kind of family kind of a feel good movie?
Yeah.
That's kind of something that should have happened right at the beginning of the process, not at the point where you're just about to make it.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I got an idea. Can we put this in the movie?
yeah, that as well. But to which my kind of.
Oh, what happened?
We lost him. Oh, he flipped out.
Oh shit.
All right, hold on. He can rejoin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can rejoin.
Oh my god.
That's okay.
That's the first time I've ever done that.
Did you do that?
I think.
Oh, he's back already. He's back.
I think I accidentally clicked the button. I don't know what happened.
I think we accidentally.
No, I think actually I kind of leant on something and my trackpad backspaced me out of the page.
Back.
It was entirely my fault. That was.
Okay, well, Brad thought it was his fault.
I take the blame for everything.
Yeah, he does.
I'm literally gonna own that one. That one was me. I got too enthusiastic for a second. I got started waving my arms around, which is never a good sign.
So what?
Right. So you were saying it never really gets to that point because you end up having a conversation.
I've worked out what the producer's expectations are.
Right.
So I always need to know what the most powerful person in the room, and that's generally the person who's paying the bill, what it is, why they're doing what they're doing, and what they need from it. So that way so the development just isn't this kind of giving script notes. It's really about, on one level, it's creating the artistic outcome, but on the other thing, it's about creating a product.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding both halves and making sure that they work together. So that kind of, I don't come up against those kind of notes at the moment because generally all of that stuff's been dealt with earlier in the process. So we don't get those kind of surprises. Now, occasionally you do. Occasionally someone will throw a kind of thing. And I mean, generally in those kind of things, I have to kind of walk out and hold my tongue because I have to think how I'm going to say what I need to say,
So
as opposed to saying what I'm thinking,
I'm gonna put a pin in that. I'll get back to you on that.
That's why I'm quiet most of the time because everything that wants to come out is not helpful.
Yeah. So I carry this little notebook with me and a fountain pen everywhere I go, and I'll literally kind of write what I need to say in the thing and then close it up so it can't be read, and then I'll say, I'll email you about that.
Yes.
Or I'll kind of call you in a couple of hours when I've had a chance to talk that through with the rest of the team.
Or maybe I can figure out a way to say this nicely or gently or something or constructively.
A lot of times Brad just lets me do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the problems are, and then you talk to the guy.
Thanks for making it my problem. Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the time, I can persuade somebody not to do something stupid.
Yeah.
Hey, how? I didn't think that was possible.
Well, it's a lot of the time, it's just kind
Not
of going.
in America.
I had. You know,
he knows.
That would be
they have CNN.
Yeah. I am aware that things go on an interesting trajectory.
Yeah, although, an interesting trajectory is a way to.
In the UK, we've had an interesting trajectory as well.
Yeah, you have.
So,
yes.
We're not. We can't we're not standing over here on a box covered in glory at the moment.
Yeah.
But so. No, you're saying.
We were so why do you ever just say to them, why didn't you just have this idea and have me write it instead of having me come in and fix the thing? You know,
it's like I
do you miss writing more than you miss?
Well, the thing is, I still do write.
Okay.
So I mean, so the new company that we've set up, which is kind of basic for me, development consultancy has always been a way of kind of like paying the bills. Yeah, it puts food on the table, and that has always allowed me kind of like the opportunity to kind of like to develop projects on the side.
Okay. Yeah,
and I mean, the story of my last decade is like every year is identical and every year is different. So every year at the beginning of the year, I say like, this is the year that I am going to make like the perfect micro budget movie.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I've kind of got it. I know. I mean, so I've got like one at the moment, which I just need to sit down and write. It's got 2 actors, 1 location. Yes. It kind of like it works. I know exactly how it works. I know who to put in the cast. I know who to direct it. I know who's going to shoot it. I know all of this thing. I just need to sit down and write it. And then every single year, like some producer will come up to me and say, why don't you come over here and help us do this much bigger thing?
Yeah, and we'll pay
so I end up
you.
putting a year into that much bigger kind of project.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year, when that all kind of caves in, I kind of like, I'm sitting going, right, this is the year I'm going to do the kind of the independent sort of, the one that I can control myself. Because I mean, I absolutely love that kind of filmmaking. That's the kind of filmmaking that I get really excited about.
Yeah.
And especially as a writer, because it's, for me, like micro budget independent is the most difficult form of screenwriting so you can take on, because it all leans on the script.
Yeah, and
there
isn't economical and also brilliant at the same time.
And also you need to understand every aspect of filmmaking so that you're not kind of setting yourself up for something that can't be done for whatever you need to kind of raise to kind of do it. And I mean, we've figured out the one that I really want to do, that I was supposed to do last year.
Yeah.
I needed about kind of 60,000 to do it, and if I had 60,000, I could like knock it out of the park and have like a really good lead actor and a great DP, and and it would be, it would come out the way that I wanted it to come out. Right. But again, like other things,
started a company instead. That will suck even more of your time away from.
I got lured into another project, but actually, it's a project I really care about, because I really do care about development.
Yeah,
and literally, I mean, that was because of the book. Like the guy who I'm working with read my book, and then he ended up on one of the courses I was teaching, and he said, I've read your book. Will you come and do some consultancy work for me? And then he said, look, we're starting this new company. Will you come in and do this with us? And
so they brought you in. They brought you in.
Yeah, they brought me in. Yeah, I was.
Okay. That's cool.
And it was like, and that's always really nice. And I think, but it's like with everything in the last kind of few years, it's like I have to kind of, you prove yourself one client at a time, because one of the things is that I think about my career, and I'm actually quite like that this is the case, is that when people think about breaking into the industry, they always think about like breaking into like the top.
Yeah, Academy
2%.
Awards.
Yeah, they want to write the big movies and the big TV series and all of these other kind of things. And I've sat there for the last, 15 years living on kind of like what I would call the margins of the industry, that kind of gray area where people are kind of making a living and they're kind of doing these things and they're working on this project and there's a little bit of money there. And like sometimes it turns up like in an envelope.
Yeah.
And,
What it's really like. Yeah.
When you kind of people. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of, and I always think, all people are aiming for that, like what top 1-2%. They're missing out on some of the great life experiences, because there's nothing more thrilling than turning up to a bar car park at 2:00 in the morning,
and some crazy shit goes down just to get one shot. Yeah.
Or to pick up an envelope full of cash to write a draft of the script.
That too.
It's kind of like those kind of experiences. I just think are just defining, and I just love that part of the industry that works like that, where it's sort of kind of chaotic.
I don't know if this can be answered, but I have, since I was a kid, watching movies and seeing how they did things wrong and like broke their own rules, or like having the characters do things that they shouldn't have done, or that goes against who they are, for the sake of plot. Like as a kid, just growing up, and the whole reason I got into wanting to make movies, and where we are at now, is because of this obsession in my head of like I want to be in the position that you're sort of in. It's always been my dream of being known enough in Hollywood that, like, can you just run that by me before you shoot that out, because I can get you where you want to go. Just let me fix just a couple lines of dialogue, and I can fix this whole mess you have here that's ruining it for me. So I don't know if you can answer this, but like, is there a way?
Why?
Like, how do I?
Why?
How can someone? We the good writers. We need to get.
I don't know. I've been listening to him for an hour. I'm convinced I'm not that good of a writer yet.
I love you. How can we like build up a force and get more of us out there to do what you're doing, so that I don't have to sit through terrible movies all the time where I'm considering never going to a movie theater ever again?
Actually, I mean, I do have an answer to that, but it's kind of like it's not an easy answer.
I know.
The conclusion that I've come to is that the industry only learns when you do things that they don't know how to do. So for me, at the moment, my big kind of thing is to help people make great films, in the sense that they then go, well, how did that film come about? And then the answer to that is, well, we did it this way. And it's like, and that's how so in a sense, I mean, it's kind of a bit like my career has definitely been like word of mouth. Like I'll work with somebody and then they'll be on another project, and that project will kind of run into problems, and they'll go, you should really speak to Clive. And then they bring me in, and then I have to kind of persuade them that I know what I'm talking about, and that I can really, and then I show them how I can help them. And so I'm having to prove myself in every single sort of kind of instance. And with the new company, it's exactly the same thing. I spent 6 months proving that I knew how to kind of fix projects. And then they said, well, look, we should really be doing it for other people. And then they then introduced me to other people, so it's that kind of like that word of mouth thing.
That leads me to another question of how do you prove that what you just said without because like you could say, here's what you could do to fix this one thing. They could just take your ideas and then put them in the movie and not have anything to do with you. So how do you prove it without them stealing ideas?
Contracts.
Well, like, I mean, like, so, well, okay. So the first thing is I generally try not to provide ideas. Because I think, like, we were talking about, like, what did I think was wrong with, like, kind of like the notes thing. I said, like, one of the areas which is like basing it on structure, but the other one is people basing it on their opinions, because I don't think people's opinions are really that important when it comes to I don't think that's where notes benefit. So the thing that I do is I try to the way that I give notes is I put myself as a proxy, as an advocate for the audience. Yeah. So I'll read the opening thing, and whatever questions occur to me, or whatever I can't follow because of the way that it's written, I'll write down a question. So that kind of exterior kind of bridge night, first slug line, and I go, what country are we in? Why are we here? Da da da. And then we'll get a couple of lines in, and I'll go I still don't know where we are. And then I'll kind of go, okay, so yeah. So you've introduced this character. Why have why have you described them that way? Why are they here? And so I'm just answering it. Now, sometimes the script will give you the answers, but a lot of the times it doesn't. So I'm just kind of showing them the difference between, a lot of the time it's the difference between what they had in their minds, the story they had in their minds, and what made it onto the paper.
Right.
There's this gap. And the thing is, even when I write scripts, I'll go back and read my scripts, and I can see the gap between what I knew and what the reader can work out. So a lot of my job is actually asking questions rather than giving solutions. And a lot of it is kind of I'll actually kind of go through, look, this is what your story is. Is this what you meant it to be? This happens and this happens and this happens, and then nothing happens for 20 pages, and then this happens. Did you really want to do that? Because literally, this huge acreage of yawning fuck all happens. Excuse my language.
No, it's okay.
I should have checked.
No. You're totally safe. Okay, I love that phrase, yawning fuck all. I am going to we knew we were going to get some English zingers from you. Yeah, some sayings that we don't have over here. Yawning fuck all. I like that one.
Yeah. I mean, this just kind of yawning kind of void of nothing happening.
Right.
And it's kind of, and the other thing is I'll also list down what I learn about each character. So I'll kind of go, oh well, I think this character is this kind of person based on what you've done here. And then 5 pages later, I've gone I have learned nothing new about Brad in 5 pages.
Yes, that's accurate.
So it's kind of going, okay, so what I'm checking off is what actually happens, where I'm struggling to follow where I've got questions that are unanswered. Where I'm struggling
they get to a point to where they can't answer all these questions, and then they're like, okay, will you help?
Yeah.
I mean, generally, when the great thing about writers is if you ask them the right questions, they'll go away and solve them, because that's why they're writers. Because they'll kind of go, oh yeah, that's right. That doesn't explain that, or that doesn't set that up.
Critique. You're so right. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I mean, the only thing I will add on is my final note on most scripts is the line, "This is where I lost the will to live." And it's it's how far through the script that comment kind of...
That's usually 5 minutes in for me.
That's what working with Brad is like. Did I make it 5 minutes today, or did I make it 2 hours? It's just I lost the will to live around 1:30. So, critique works that way in general. I teach high school TV production. So cool. I see a lot of shit every day.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly, and I've found over time of just having to give people critique and feedback every day is that telling them what's wrong with it only makes them resist most of the time. Asking them, why did you do that? Triggers well, why did I do that? And most of the time when it's bad, it's something like, I made this yesterday because it was due today. Stuff like that, has no reason to it. It's just we just had to shit something out. Or I don't know. A lot of times they'll just say, I don't know, I just thought it was funny. It's but it doesn't make any, you see how it doesn't make any sense?
I had a 4-year period in my life where I was teaching video production for 16 to 18-year-olds. Is that about the same as you?
Yeah, I got from about 14 to 18-year-olds. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, with me, it was 16 to, there was some mature students as well, because some of them were doing kind of pre-graduate or the first 2 years of a degree. And that was a really great experience for me, because it kind of, what I learned from that is a lot of what you were talking about. One of the things that we used to do with that is we would kind of like do like we did a lot of peer review, and the peer review system was that they had to find something good to say about whatever it was that had been made to start off with, and then they had to pick out like something that they would have done differently or something that they would have approached differently if they'd taken that project. So what each student got was kind of like like lots of positive feedback, where I mean, with some of the projects, like the students really struggled, you remember to turn the camera on, but a lot of the time it was really kind of, it was kind of like, oh, I can see what you were trying to do here, and that's like a really interesting thing. If I'd done this, I probably would have done this or this. And it just that kind of idea of kind of getting people, but for me with that, it was like getting them to make loads of stuff. As opposed to kind of like one thing, and like get them like making stuff every week, because it was that was that attrition.
When Brad and I went to school, that was our thing. Like we met in basically video broadcast school, and that was our thing. Make something and do it again tomorrow, like over and over and over again, because you're going to make shit. You're just going to do it, and like the longer you do it, the less likely you are to make something that completely sucks. 5 years into it, 6 years into it, whatever. But at the beginning, just get all the shit out of the way. Like get all the shit where now you know better. And I've noticed that just by doing something, you're better next time. Whether you learned, you just like the process is streamlined somehow, or it's just from doing that thing, from making this film. If you set out to make that film again the next time around, it would be a completely different, better film, because you already did the shitty version. Now you know. Now you exactly know.
Yeah, and the thing for me is, I mean, okay, there's been a thing on Twitter recently. I always hate bringing up things that are on Twitter. I really try to keep out of the, like the Twitter kind of like whatever the new flame war is about, kind of something that really doesn't matter at all. But one of the ones that came up recently where I've kind of like avoided getting into it, but I'm going to like just shoot myself in the foot by getting into it right here, is you quite often see kind of people giving screenwriters the advice you should go out and make the film yourself. And I'm a great advocate for screenwriters being involved in independent film. But I think when people give out that advice, sometimes I think it's kind of like people don't really understand what's being said, because like what when I say that to a screenwriter, I'm not saying go out and shoot something on your iPhone. And I'm also not saying go out and learn how to be a DOP, learn how to edit, learn how to da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What I'm actually saying is go out and find filmmakers locally and make something. But I don't mean go out and try and make that kind of spec script that you wrote, which needs a budget of, 15 million. Right. Like write something that's, I mean, like I'm somebody who had a phase where me and a couple of mates would knock out a short film with like a skateboard and 3 glove puppets in 2 days. Do you know what I mean? And we did that for the pleasure of doing that. I mean, we literally wrote the script in like 17 kind of quick sketches on the back of a piece of A4. There was no kind of do that, light it, act it, cut it, like do the Foley, kind of stick it out into the kind of thing. And it was like we had like a long time where we really kind of did that. Now, I believe that the main reason screenwriters should do things like that is because if you do that for a few years, all of a sudden how to set up a camera, how to frame a shot, what lighting, what the constraints of lighting are in different situations. You end up learning how to cut so that you understand the language of cinema. You understand what things cost or how much time it takes to get X and Y done. You get to see what dialogue works and what doesn't, what action works and what doesn't, what you can, all of these things that you work out. And all of those things inform the way that you write. So the way that I write is completely different from somebody who's never been on set.
Yeah, and actually, that reminds me of what you said about the bridge before. Because if you wrote something and then you show up and you realize, oh, this look at all this. There's a lake and everything, and this sets the whole mood, and it just says bridge in my script. So it gives you that You know, that realization of, oh, I could have described this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do
and I
you
think it's
have
also
a...
that.
Sorry, go ahead. Go, no,
No.
go ahead.
You sound like you were going to say something really interesting, and
well, I was going to ask you a question.
Always.
Yeah, I'm always brilliant. Thank you. No, I was going to ask you if you had like a favorite screenplay. Like, have you what is one of your what's some of your favorite screenplays that are a great example of what you're talking about?
All right. So my favorite screenplay is such a blatant example of all the rules being broken. It's With Nail and I, the screenplay by I've got it in front of me. Do you know when your brain goes like completely blank? I've forgotten who wrote it.
That's me.
Yeah, all the time.
Like literally. Well, it's the screenplay for With Nail and I, and it's published in book form. And the guy who wrote it, whose name escapes me for the moment, like he's only like one of my favorite screenwriters.
Yeah.
But the guy who wrote that, the script itself is literally full of jokes that can't make it onto the screen, and full of kind of literary kind of pretensions. And it's the most readable script I've ever kind of like read, because it's endlessly entertaining. Although a lot of it isn't shootable. But actually the film itself is astonishing. It's an astonishing movie.
I've never even heard of it. I'm looking at it. Here's Bruce Robinson.
Honestly, that's him. Bruce Robinson, who I absolutely adore as a writer. And it's the film that made Richard E. Grant famous.
Okay.
Basically, Richard E. Grant often says that all the work that he's got is because of this like movie that he did in the early 80s called With Nail and I. And it's basically the story. It's based on his experiences of being an actor training at Central in London, and he shared a flat with another actor, and they're both raging alcoholics.
Yeah.
And it's just the horrific mess that they get themselves into by trying to go on holiday to the countryside. And it's astonishing. It's an astonishing piece of filmmaking, and I absolutely adore it. For me, and it was one of the first scripts I ever read, but for me, Bruce Robinson's With Nail and I is right up there.
Anything else, like any film in the last 5 years that like...
It's hard.
Last 5 years. Do you know what? I see what it is.
It doesn't have to be the last 5 years.
No, it's okay. Right. In terms of films that I've enjoyed and just thought that is a film that kind of really works for what it is. Yeah. I would say the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Okay.
I thought James Gunn did something remarkable with that film, because what he did is he got the balance just right, for comic book nerds like myself, but also in terms of actually telling like this kind of quite credible human kind of story, where again all the characters work, even Groot, and he should never work. That shouldn't work, but that worked like so well. So for me, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think is probably in terms of a kind of like regular. There's loads of kind of there's a film. It's not 5 years old. It's kind of older than that. It's probably about 10 years old. There's an Estonian film called Rusalka, which is like an Eastern European version of Amelie, which again I just absolutely adore. It's such a great, quirky little story with great music and great performances, and it's just again it's like so well thought out. And who else? Oh, there's an American independent filmmaker called Maccabee, who made an astonishing film called American Astronauts.
Okay,
which again is one of those films where you go, oh well, this is somebody who has like decided to kind of make films, and he's made something that no one else would have made. And for me, it like just everything about that film works on so many levels. It's so simple and visually interesting and weird, and it's got a very kind of strong David Lynch kind of quality to it as well. So as you can see, my tastes are eclectic. Yeah,
that's all right. That's good. I think
that's kind of like those are the ones that really stick with me in lots of respects.
Well, while wrapping up, what do we? So first of all, I have another question for you. Does anyone ever just bring you on and say, we want to make a movie about this? Here's the person writing it. Can you, through the whole process of the script?
That's literally what we're just going into. We're actually in the We're actually in the process of negotiating exactly that kind of deal right now.
Okay.
So it's kind of that's the thing that we've been working towards. Generally, what happens is you end up coming in when some of the work's already been done.
Yeah, when it's already needs help.
I actually much prefer to come in actually right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like when it's just an idea and you've got this team.
Yeah.
If you got a producer and a director and a writer who all like each other to start off with and who respect each other's work and who want to work together. I think the best way to develop a film is actually for those guys to sit down, those people to sit down and to actually kind of like work through the development process together as a team, as opposed to starting with a spec script. That's just a kind of person.
How does that work with you? Do you guys... Would your company then get a producer credit or a writing credit, or is it just like
it varies from project
ghostwriting? Like it's like
it genuinely varies from project to project.
Okay.
Because I mean, like one of the guys on the team is a producer. He's like an award-winning producer who's won a kind of Golden Bear and like got stuff nominated at Sundance and all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of so. Basically, he kind of deals with all of that. I've tried to kind of get a credit as development producer where possible, or just development consultant if I must.
Yeah.
So I always try to go for a kind of producer credit, or at least I try to go for a producer credit.
That's cool. Because, so you got a writer sitting here listening to this episode. Maybe they've written 20 screenplays. Maybe they've written 0 screenplays. What do you tell them? What do you tell a person who's sitting down to write? Do you have any tips while you're getting started? Here are the 3 things you need to think about when you first sit down.
Yeah, I mean, what do you know? Actually, okay. So here's a really simple piece of advice, which anybody can do, and it takes 5 minutes. And I just wish more screenwriters would do it. Before you start even developing characters, when you've got your raw idea, when you've got this rough idea, I want to tell this kind of film, right? Set yourself up an account on Pinterest, and create a secret board, one that only you can look at, and collect photos of the locations that you think this film is going to be shot in. So actually, get photographs of the fictional world. Find photographs of people who look like the kind of people who would be the characters, not actors, but just regular shots of people doing the thing. So for instance, like you were setting a film in Croatia, right, on the Mediterranean, and it was going to be about a group of people who go scuba diving and discover this kind of treasure. Get photographs of the Croatian coast, of a specific town, that you think looks visually interesting. Get photographs of people scuba diving, of all of that kind of thing, and put them all on one board. And what you'll find is you'll be amazed at how much of the movie you can then visualize.
Right. It's
because you're using all of this visual source material, and it will also help you create characters because you're using that source material as the starting point. So that thing I said about you take information from the first impression that you get of someone. If your starting point is a photograph of an actual person doing the activity that you're writing about, then you're actually feeding off those visual cues.
Yeah.
And it just makes things way easier. So that would be the first thing. That's one of the things that I pretty much ask all writers to do, is to do that. Start by collecting photographs. Start by watching videos. Start by collecting material rather than starting by writing.
Yeah. So many times we're impatient and we just want to sit down and start writing. Even if, for me, I've caught my own self being impatient, and I just want to get to the outlining and just outline my things so that when I'm writing, I don't have to, come up with the next scene or any of that stuff. But I find myself impatiently getting to that before the idea is even clear in my head, and it makes outlining impossible. Because you're changing things, you're deleting things, it doesn't work anymore. The idea isn't fully formed in your head yet.
Can I give you something that might help you with that?
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
A lot of the time, like I think the reason that lots of writers work exactly that way.
Yeah.
And I think what it is because like ideas don't come fully formed; they come in like little packets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the packets often come in the wrong order as well.
Yes.
So like you'll have this like this thing. It could be this moment in the film or this moment that is what's driving the story. And one of the things that you can do with that, instead of kind of doing that and then trying to kind of create the story around that, you could literally go out and write what I call a seed scene. So literally write that scene, right? And it doesn't matter how bad it is, because all of this is like preparatory writing. You're not writing a draft. You're literally just playing with this world using writing as a creative process.
Because that's what the whole thing is. It's a big rush to get to write the scene that you fall in love with.
Yeah,
that half the time doesn't even end up in your finished thing anyway.
But that's okay because you've got to remember that this is just part of the development process.
Yeah, it's part of the development.
And so like, what I do is I call those seed scenes, and I'll write those scenes, and then I'll put them to one side, and and the thing is like not to copy and paste them into the film.
Yeah,
is to kind of like rewrite them when you get to that point in the film. But a lot of the time, you'll discover your characters whilst doing that, or you'll discover like things about it as you're doing, and it's this whole kind of thing about. Although, like, I really believe in organized process, I also believe in using writing to kind of like as a creative process, because it is that. It's just a case of doing it like intelligently. And for me, that's one of the ways to do that. It kind of breaks that kind of that thing of thinking, well, I've got this idea, now I have to fit it into a plot. When in fact you don't. Because it's what you have to do is let your creative process lead you.
Yeah.
Through. And what it might want to do is show you that. And then once you've written that, you may find that you've got other ideas, either about characters or about something, and then you'll have this other bit. And you just like dodge back and forth until you get to the point where you're ready to do the kind of the constructive work, Does that help at all? I mean, it's something.
That's great advice. So yeah.
I think we just became best friends.
Yeah,
Brad's
gonna want your number.
I would be absolutely honored to be your BFF. Absolutely honored. No, but definitely stay in touch.
Well, how do people find you? Like, I know you're on Twitter.
Okay, so like, find me. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
I used okay, so this is like sorry for all my friends on Twitter, but I'm going to tell you something dreadful now. So I quite like to connect with people on Twitter because it allows people to like they follow me, I follow them back, and then they can send me a DM.
Yeah.
And then I get an email.
Yeah.
And that means I've got this kind of way of people emailing me without knowing my email address, which means if they turn out to be a nightmare, I can block them.
Right. Yes.
That's a good idea.
So
with me.
I kind of like, I kind of differentiate between kind of like my online network and my professional network in that way. So it's almost like, it's dreadful. Basically, what I do is I audition people to bring in across the barrier.
You have to.
Yeah, you kind of have to, because I mean, in this industry in particular, you do run into people where you kind of go, look, and because people want to be involved so much, and a lot of the time they look at what you're doing and they go, oh, he has what I want, and I'm sitting here thinking, I genuinely don't. you know.
Yeah.
But I can't like. I probably can't. I probably can't help you as much as you think that I can.
Yeah.
Because actually,
you
I'm just
still have to do it because
I still have to go out there. I'm still kind of, I mean, look at me. Look, how old and decrepit and haggard I am. Right, and
it's my viewpoint.
I'm literally. I'm at this stage, and I am still in the process of kind of like building my career. I'm not at this point where I'm kind of like settled and everything. I can just sit back and like people call me up and hey, like, would you like to do this? No, I'm still having to like claw away for everything that I do, and I don't mind that. I'm kind of good with that. I like what I do. I like the lifestyle that I have, but it's kind of so. I think people,
working on it.
Brad's not sure he likes his lifestyle, but he likes.
Well, it's getting better.
Brad might like my lifestyle.
Yeah. Looks like it. You look comfy over there.
Do you know? This is my office. I absolutely adore this. This is my space. I kind of paint and draw as well as kind of doing this.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
It's one of the things.
We've known each other from Twitter, like
for a long time.
For a long time. I think I talked to you maybe 2 years ago about coming on our show, and then we went on a really long hiatus while we finished some of our other stuff and while we had a pandemic.
I mean, I've been really busy as well, but
I'm glad. I'm both glad you came on, and I'm also regret that we didn't have you on sooner.
I think you actually probably caught me at the right time, because I mean, it's kind of if you'd spoken to me 2 years ago, I could have talked about the book and I could have talked about a couple of other things, but actually the last 2 years have like really changed what I do a lot. So I'm now at probably the most interesting point in my career I've ever been. So
yeah, I thought you were gonna say you're the most interesting you're ever gonna be.
No. I was at my most interesting when I was about 46. So that was kind of like and that was way that was a long time ago. I had a really good year. Everything kind of came together for me.
That's good.
That's great.
Because a lot of people suffered in the last year or two, and it's been real hard.
No, I made out like a bandit. That's dreadful to say, but I genuinely did.
Well, we will hit you up on Twitter the next time we have a development question. Do people just hire you as to do script coverage, or do you want people to come to you for like more intense
so
full-on project stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I generally, like on individual, like one-to-one clients, like my own practice as opposed to Script Compass.
Oh, okay.
It's generally like I only work with producers, so I very rarely work with individual writers.
Okay.
Because it's just this kind of thing with Script Compass. Basically, people come in. They're generally people who've already kind of done something else in the industry. So they're either like actors who are turning to writing, or people who've worked in other aspects of the thing are coming into this. And we're going to do their first projects with them, and they kind of sign up for a kind of development kind of package where we take them through a process that will take anything between. Well, on a short, 5-6 weeks, on a feature 6 months, something like that.
All right. Well, we got to get your book. We got to get a copy of your book. And,
I mean, like I tell you, send me your postal address via DM in Twitter, and I will literally.
I'm still not sure if I want to give you my email address.
We got to
no. By all means,
this is just an interview.
What I'll do is I'll post 2 copies over. Let me give those to you.
Yeah, well,
that would be my absolute pleasure.
I am there. I really. It's like I need to know the process of the things you're talking about with the characters. I have been obsessed with human behavior and characters my whole life. Mike and I have our own system of characters and stuff, and I need to know what is your.
I swear it looks like we're winging it compared to your process, though.
It does.
We're pulling it out of our ass compared to what you do. Yeah.
Like you put more on paper. We do most of it in our head. So I need to see what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I told you the other thing I'll do. I'll do that, and I'll also I'll send you a link to a drive where I'll send you my template, my spreadsheet template for project development.
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
And it's and then just ask questions. You kind of go like, well, why do you do that? I'll send some examples over as well, so you can see how it kind of works. It would be my absolute kind of pleasure to do that, and at some point let's sit down and I'd like to know how you guys do it as well, because I never ever stop learning.
Yes.
People have always got.
We do it slowly. It's taking forever.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at me. It's kind of.
It's like talking to me sometimes. Look what I got to work with.
Well, if you want to get in touch with us, we are Phil. Well, I don't know why you want to talk to us when you could talk to him.
Yeah,
but,
just skip.
Just skip us. I'm Beckmeyer on Instagram, Twitter, and all that stuff, and he's the Balding Ewok, or Balding Ewok. You can send us an email at filmeverypodcast@gmail.com. We will see you on our Friday episode.
And did we get his Twitters or what?
I mean, the easiest way to get in touch with me, if you don't know me professionally, is to find me on Twitter, and that's at Clive Frayne, spelled Frayne. That's it. But with an at the beginning of it, and that's me. And if you follow me, I will follow you back.
Okay, cool. Well, that's it.
And I do try to answer any questions that people ask me, providing
you're real nice on Twitter. You're real nice on
Twitter. I work really hard at that. You wouldn't believe how much stuff I delete before sending.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably do. Because I have the same thing. I've tried to, All right, well, that's it.
Okay, cool. But like guys, thanks.
Hold on, we'll be right back. I just got to end the show.
Yeah. Can you still hear us? You can still hear us.